Thursday morning brought an important piece of housekeeping that we will discuss on this edition of the On Friar podcast. He is Derek Togerson. I am Darnay Tripp. And we're also like a week away from the Padres all bigging together in Peoria. I saw Jeremiah Estrada posted on Instagram his locker in Peoria. And so we've got some like baseball things to discuss. How are things looking before they get together? But today, an important step. What it means, Derek, we'll see as time goes.
Yep, John Seidler has earned the vote. Now we have to see if he actually gets to take over the position and what his plans for the future of the San Diego Padres truly are.
Yes, a unanimous vote from MLB owners. And so that's the big news of the day as Spring Training Fest approaches. Appreciate OGs, the sponsor of the On Friar podcast. Thanks to OGs for all they do for us and the NBC 7 Sports Wrap team. If maybe you're looking for a place to watch a football game on Sunday night, OG is a great place to do that. Lots of TVs, great menu, constantly doing specials, updates to their menu, and an awesome beer list. So hit up OGs if there's a big game you want to watch, or if you just want to get a good meal with some friends, family, loved ones, hit up one of their many locations around San Diego
There
County.
are no big football games this Sunday, Darnay.
There is one. There was one very, very big football game that I will be, my mood from Sunday evening into Monday will be determined by that, but that's for another podcast. Without further ado, the walk-up music. It is the On Fire podcast brought to you by NBC 7. He is Derek Togerson. I am Darnay Tripp. Pleased to be with you on a Thursday afternoon. And the big headline of the day, as Derek mentioned, John Seidler approved by fellow MLB owners as the Padres' next control person. Derek, you've been on the story for the TV side. What's your takeaway from today's events? What it means? We knew this was coming. Is it a formality? Is there more to it? What do we know? What do we feel at this point?
It's a formality from that standpoint. Major League Baseball's owners were going to do this. They have committees and things that set all this. They vet all these things before it even gets to a vote at the owners' meetings. So by the time they get to a vote at the owners' meetings, they've gone through all the information, all the background checking, looking at all the different P's and Q's of the situation. Of course, the Padres situation, a little more complicated than a lot of these things are due to dueling lawsuits. But by the time he actually gets to this point, everyone knows all the information they think they have to have. So the fact it was unanimous vote is actually not all that surprising. What would have been very surprising and actually a huge red flag is if they would have had either slightly less than the 75% they needed, or if they would have said, you know, we're gonna delay a vote. We're not going to actually look at this right now, because if they said we're going to kick the can down the road a little bit, then it means they would have looked at what's going on in San Diego and gone, this is a bleep show, and we're not going to touch it until you guys figure out what the hell you're doing out there. So the fact they even made a vote shows you there is some confidence in the league, in the stability of the Padres as a franchise, and that overall I think is a good sign.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And at some point, we will get a chance to hear from John Seidler. Now, there's this 30-day period where he has to formally become a trustee in the Peter Seidler Trust to
Correct.
then assume his position, not just as control person, but chairman of the Padres. And so there is some lag time here, which could mean that there will be some lag time in actually getting a chance to like hear from the guy and getting a chance to understand like his vision for the team. But based on the reporting of many others, it seems like, you know, if you are expecting anything different from the status quo and what we've seen from the last year or so and what we've heard about how they're going to operate, I would caution against that. It seems like they're going to kind of continue the path that we've been on.
Yeah, the only thing that really can muck this up now is if a judge sides with Sheila Seidler, because if they do, if that happens and she blocks John from becoming the trustee of the Peter Seidler Trust, which has the majority stake in the Padres, and therefore that's why that the person who controls that controls the decision-making day-to-day process of the organization. If she's able to block that in a court of law, then you've got a lot of real problems, because then it's kind of, rudderless ship. You really have no idea who's making any decisions, what decisions can be made. Can AJ go out and make a trade? All these things come into question. But if things continue to go along the path that they are right now, which the people I've talked to tend to think that it's probably going to happen, then yes, before opening day, we will have John Seidler in charge as the trustee and as the chairperson / control person of the Padres. And therefore we'll have someone there who can start to point the group in the right direction and give AJ the parameters of what he can and cannot do. So we're on a track here. I don't know if it's the right track or not, but we're on a track here to have some sort of resolution on who's going to be calling the shots. But there are pitfalls along the way that we're just going to have to kind of see if they pop up, how they pop up, and what the legal solutions are here.
Yeah, Dennis Lynn of The Athletic tweeted, Shield Seidler's attorney on MLB's approving John Seidler. Quote, "This was merely a pro forma decision that we expected from MLB. It was not a comment on the merits of Shield's lawsuit, which has just begun and which we believe will protect the team and Peter's legacy for years to come." So do with that what you will. What is interesting, I think, I've kind of thought this, and I think a lot of people just like the timing of Shield filing the way that she did, or when she did, early January, shortly after news broke that the Seidler brothers, Eric Katsenda, would be presenting John Seidler as the next control person. It felt a little bit like Shield trying to get ahead of that to some degree, but
they did an arbitration in December.
Right.
Shortly after Matt made that announcement that John would be the guy who was going to be the nominee, they approached Shield a few days after that, I believe right around Christmas, said, we'd like to go through some of these things and arbitrate so we can make sure that everything's on the up and up, and we're going to go through the trust and following what Peter wants in his trust. When they went through that arbitration process, I think that was when Shield started to feel like she was remarkably disrespected by the proceedings, and that's when she put together and filed the lawsuit.
Yeah.
The arbitration offer was there. She didn't like what was happening. She files a lawsuit. The brothers then respond by filing a motion to try and say, no, you have to arbitrate this the way we've been trying to do it. And that's where we find ourselves in the quagmire that we're currently stuck in.
Quagmire, good word. Yeah, I think initially it seemed like, okay, does this have something to do with John? As more information came out, like you just laid out, it seems to be more directed at, that aspect of what they're kind of, like arm wrestling over currently, because as we know, these things take so long. So like it was never going to stop what was going to happen today. Like this was always going to be on the way. And again, like what it means from baseball standpoint, like they seem to have no issues with John Seidler. I think I've just thought all along, like they are the trustees. They are the ones currently in position to operate the trust, to run the show, so to speak. As long as that's the case, even Shield being the sole beneficiary, it, again, not knowing the inner workings of these things and the implications, it seems like it would be hard for her to end up in position that she essentially wants to be in as the control person, because they are currently the ones doing so and making the determinations, making decisions that lead to what happened today, and which got the check mark from MLB. So it seems like from a legal standpoint, again, not knowing exactly what case her representatives will present, if it reaches that point, seems like it's a tough hill for her to climb, given that they are the ones in control.
I have talked to people who have actually seen the verbiage of the trust, talked to them today, and they say that their take on it is it's fairly straightforward that Peter meant to have his brothers be in control of the trust, but also for Shield to be heavily involved in the franchise. being around it, having his kids around, having his kids grow up in it, having her be what she was when he was around, which is the person who can help be the closer to bring in free agents, people like be a real asset to the team. That's what I think he meant it to be. And it's kind of being misconstrued by a little bit on both sides of how that is now interpreted in a court of law. Remember, Shield has a law degree from Yale. She's smart. She knows how to look at things and how to argue things. So I think from the people I've talked to who actually have read the trust, they believe that the brothers are meant to be in charge and the Shield is meant to have a large part in helping with, promoting the organization and promoting the product and the team. And somehow that's being dragged through the waters here of what does that actually mean, and who then should have actual control, and how do we work together, and who has this percentage of control over whatever it is. And that's where the gray area is here.
Yeah, it seems to be a massive swath of gray area.
Yeah. The Everglades, the Evergrays of, I guess you will.
And I wonder, if the hope was to have their daughter eventually take over, what does it mean if we're going long term? What are the implications there? Because even if they could still exact his will, so to speak, from that standpoint, but also feel like Shield's not the person that should be. It was never determined that she would be the control person. That was never, and according to what, again, in these, in the paperwork that's been filed, and in kind of some of the back and forth, the statements, that sort of thing, that it was never Peter's intention for Shield to take over. But you have this belief, or it's out there, that his hope was that it would stay with the kids. So what does that mean? And this is going way too far ahead when we have more pressing things and seasons that will be played and rosters that will be determined based on, ownership in the near future. But it's just something that I've wondered, just what does this all mean from that standpoint? Again, the idea of them possibly selling would seem to end those hopes. And I think part of what Shield's beef has been is hey, they aren't doing their fiduciary duties. They are not carrying on the plan that Peter Seidler had laid out. If that is one aspect of it, that eventually his kids are in that position, that could still happen. But as it pertains to Shield, those two things aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. I think that's what I'm clumsily trying to get around to saying.
Yeah, that's what we have to try and figure out too. Is you just don't know. You just don't know on the situation. And what's interesting is I talked to Barry Bloom today. He's a guy who's covered baseball for 50 years. Yeah. He actually knew Peter Seidler fairly well. I'd like to play a little part of this conversation I had with Barry. Because one of the things that people want to know now is, listen, I know a lot of Padre fans are we don't care who's in charge. We just want to see the Padres in good hands. Whichever hands that happens to be, just put it in the best possible hands. And can we please start moving forward? And can we keep doing what Peter had done, which is chasing a championship? So talk to Barry about that and where the team sits financially now, and how looks like John Seidler is going to try and keep him right around that, if not below that competitive balance tax. Not sure what Shield's idea for the financial future of the team would be, but it was very telling and actually quite open what Barry said about the conversations that he has had with Peter, and how unique the situation is now that the rest of the family is coming in and having to now work around the parameters that he had in place, especially with some of these contracts that they have been handing out the last few years. So let's listen to what Barry had to say here.
Situation in this one was the fact that Peter was a two-time cancer survivor, and he knew that his time was limited. He was not getting much better, even though the cancer had been eradicated. He was susceptible to multiple infections, and ultimately that's how he died. His body just couldn't fight off the infections anymore. And having been a two-time cancer survivor myself, we discussed this a lot, and we discussed a lot about how much he wanted to give the city and himself a World Series winner while he was still alive. And, we used to talk about it saying, yeah, I mean, I've covered the Padres this is my 50th baseball season. I've covered the Padres for 50 years in one way or another. Really, I'd like to see the Padres win a World Series before I die too. And we used to talk about it a lot. So I think what he tried to do was he tried to invest in the team quickly enough and build it up so that it had a chance to compete with the Dodgers to win. And you basically just couldn't get over the hump. But now what's happened is now you have the rest of the family who's left with the the kind of like the bag to carry with all the contracts that he did deal out, and perhaps not even the same commitment or willingness to spend money that Peter did to do the same thing. Peter was a very special person, as his ability to deal with and help the homeless in the community was. I mean, he was a special person. And so, he really wanted to do this, and the money really wasn't that much of an object.
Yeah, very, very honest and open with Barry. A lot of the conversations that he had with Peter Seidler. I think that's incredibly accurate, that Peter kind of unfortunately saw the end coming and was trying against all odds to try and get a championship that he can enjoy in San Diego. And when he left way too soon, that desire didn't change. He didn't want it to only be during his lifetime. He wants to have a World Series championship for San Diego. But I think pushing that hard to get one in a shorter time frame has, as we've seen the last couple of years, kind of crunched the team from a financial standpoint. So now that's where we are with these lawsuits, where one side is trying to get the team back on I think more consistently stable financial ground, or maybe one side is trying to go, no, Peter started this. We're not stopping until we get one, even if it is going to be financially maybe a little bit more reckless, for lack of a better word, and trying to do that. So that I think that's where a lot of the consternation and a lot of the infighting is coming from, is trying to do. Everyone wants what Peter wanted, the win a World Series. They just want to go about it in very dramatically different ways.
Yeah, and it's like you wish, again, like they're never going to, like, year in and year out be like top 3, top 5 in payroll. I guess, like, from a fan standpoint, could there be more like a more gradual, cutting of payroll and the budget? Now, it is hard with, what Barry just laid out, the contracts that they do have, the obligations that they're having to fulfill. Bogart's contract isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Tatis's, Machado's, but I think it would be comforting to fans, like, even if you were going to get to that eventual result, like, okay, we got 3 or 4 years ahead of us. Eventually, Joe and you are going to be off the books, and Cronenworth and Suarez and Eric Hosmer. Let's just kind of ride it out. Maybe we take a step back, but we're, more comfortably in like the top 10, rather than,
which is where they are right now. They're sitting on that top 10 in payroll. And then they're up in the top, I think, 7 or 8 when it comes to competitive balance tax numbers.
Yeah. So, the issue is, it's a tough situation, because, like, if you just look at the numbers, like you said, like, they're in the neighborhood of, like somewhere in the top 10 in payroll. Like, you can compete there. It just gets hard to do so when you have the contracts that they have to round out the roster. Like, if you just started from 0, or maybe you just had Tatis's contract or just had Machado's contract, there's plenty of money to build with that. It's just, you have Bogart's contract, or still paying Eric Hosmer. You have so much money that's spoken for, which then makes it difficult to maneuver the way that they need to fill out the roster, have a deep competitive team within the parameters that they are setting forth, whatever they may be. It looks like, even though they reset the luxury tax, like, they're going to want to stay under that. That's not the swimming pool they plan on hanging out in anymore. So I don't know. I think while they haven't exactly completely dropped off in terms of payroll, it would be impossible for them to, unless they just, really sell, sell their stars away and do what they can to start from scratch. They're just in a tough spot given the money that's already spoken for, and the needs in the roster. It's just, I think, discouraging for fans. What was it, 90 million last year? Their payroll from 2023 to 2024, and so on and so forth. So it's discouraging, and it is kind of, from obviously the commitments that Peter Seidler signed off on, and now being in AJ Preller's spot where like you gave out that Bogarts contract thinking that you were going to be able to, field a payroll in a certain area, and then a year or two later, that's no longer the case, and you're left to try and maneuver with so much of your budget spoken for by these kind of bloated contracts.
I think what hurts for San Diego fans is we got the Dodgers right up the road, and you see what they're doing, and they're telling everybody else to go to hell. Right? They're just saying, oh, well, $379 million, no problem. We will pay $130 million tax bill because we don't give a damn. We'll do it because we're still going to make money. And I think what we have to, and I have been as guilty of this as anybody else has, bemoaning the fact that we can't do that. Right? Whereas instead, I think we should probably try and remind ourselves, and I had to do this to myself, the Padres are not the outliers. The Dodgers and the Yankees and the Mets are the outliers. I mean, we're much closer to the Cardinals or the Orioles. I mean, the Cardinals are one of the greatest franchises in baseball history. They haven't won a World Series in more than a decade. They haven't been to one. The Orioles in the 60s and 70s, one of the marquee franchises in all of Major League Baseball with the Jim Palmers and Frank Robinsons of the world. They haven't won a World Series since 83, haven't been to one since 83. So you're looking at the Mariners never been to a World Series. So the Padres are in a very good place when it comes to the majority of Major League Baseball. Like, this team has a legitimate chance to go and be one of the 6 teams in the National League that makes it to the playoffs. No question. This team has the talent to do that. And to be able to say that you can do that on a year in and year out basis is a good thing. It's just that when you look at what some other teams are doing, especially when it's one that's going to be right up the road, and the fact that they're giving away replica World Series trophies on the day that the Padres are going up to Dodger Stadium, like which is a brilliant freaking troll job. I give the Dodgers all kinds of credit for that because I do the exact same stupid thing. But when you see that kind of stuff happening, it gets frustrating, right? But remember, the Padres right now are in better shape as a franchise than they have literally ever been in their entire existence. So that's a good thing. There's a lot of stuff here to build on and to work with right now. So I think maybe that's where we need to focus and go with this here too, is yes, things are difficult in the grand scheme of Major League Baseball, trying to overcome a couple of juggernauts you have to deal with. But the bottom line is we got a possibility, we're not the Marlins, which is awesome.
Yeah, you can say that again. What does their payroll figure look like for 2025?
Yeah,
I think it's what makes it hard is you felt like you should be in a championship window. I mean, the fact that you reached the NLCS 2023, you bring Juan Soto back coming off that NLCS season, and you feel like you should be able to contend again. This past year, again, going toe to toe with the Dodgers, being one win away from eliminating the Dodgers, and being, quite clearly, and you keep hearing about it from people within the Dodgers organization, like, Padres were the best team we faced. That was our World Series, yada, yada, yada. So you have those two opportunities, those two close calls. You have this window that, like, maybe 2021 really, like, it felt like it was kind of wide open. Like, okay, this is our time. You have a couple of seasons in there that are just like unmitigated disasters, some missed opportunities there. And now you're at this place where, like, you're still in like a playoff window, postseason window, but like, are you in and baseball is such that when we say it ad nauseum, just get in and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
But it felt like this team wasn't shouldn't have just been in that just get in mode. Like, this is a playoff team. Like 2023, I think they had like the second highest playoff odds, or maybe even World Series odds, from like ESPN and FanGraphs going into the season. And we saw what happened. But that's the type of, it feels a little bit different when that is the expectation versus, yeah, we can contend, hopefully year in, year out, we can contend for a wild card spot, and that being your biggest source of optimism. And even going into the last couple weeks, this past season and the NL West wasn't completely decided yet. Like, oh, okay, they're actually going to battle the Dodgers for this. That's like a different, I think they're going from that neck of the woods to this other one where like should be World Series contenders, real contenders for the National West, to I think we got a good enough team to make the playoffs. Then we'll see what happens after that. You know, it again.
Well, what's the difference in the current scheme of Major League Baseball? What's the difference in just saying, hey, like if your stated goal is we got to get in the playoffs? What's the difference in that? I think you're characterizing this as, why are we just settling for this, which is not what you're doing. What you're doing is recognizing the fact that the Dodgers talent level might be the greatest collection of talent we've ever seen in the history of Major League Baseball. And they're going to win the West because you're, as I've said this 1,000 times, you're not going to beat them over 162 games, but you can beat them over 5. So getting in and taking your shot, that is not resigning yourself to the fact that you are a wild card team. That is, let us get into a position where we can take these guys out. That's what you're doing. You're not taking, settling for second place.
No, I think I just mean like the Phillies have been in the playoffs pretty much every year. The Braves have been in the playoffs pretty much every year. The Brewers have been in the playoffs pretty consistently. Padres every other year, which is fine. I mean, it should have been 5 straight years or 4 out of 5 or what have you. I think there is a little bit of a difference from like, this is a clear-cut playoff team, World Series contender, which is, I think, the impression that we've had in recent years. And now, like, I think this can be a playoff team. I think those are two different things. When one is a bit more of a toss-up just to get in the dance and hope you can pull off a miracle, the other is, no, we can go toe-to-toe with the Dodgers. We can threaten for the division during the regular season, and we can be within a game of them in the postseason. We're just kind of, I fear that we're cresting from that one territory into another where we can't with much certainty go into the playoffs and feel like, oh yeah, this is the team that will be there in October.
I disagree on that. If you look at the talent that's still here, this is a really good ball club. Yeah. This is a really, really, really good ball club. I think, if you look to next year, 2026, now, there probably gonna be a whole bunch of holes because you don't know about Dylan Cecil be gone. You don't know about Michael King or Luis Ariz or any of these other guys. You just don't know, right? But this year, right now, this is, take it on a year-by-year basis, this is still a really, really good baseball team. And I think they are absolutely on the short list of teams that can contend and get into it. The National League, as you know, is very top-heavy, right? You got, in the West, the Padres, Diamondbacks, Dodgers, they're all going to be legitimately in playoff contention. In the Central, it's going to be the Brewers and the Cubs. I don't see anybody else jumping up there and taking that next step. And in the East, it's the 3-headed monster of the Mets, the Phillies, and the Braves. Okay, that is 8 teams. 8 teams for 6 playoff spots. I'll take my chances with that. You just got to knock it. You got to finish ahead of 2 of those teams. And now you're going to be in the postseason. And that's very doable in this National League. So if you look at it that way, just who do we have to beat? We got to beat these 2 guys. All right, we'll go out and do it. That's the way I'm looking at this. Is if you get in, you're gonna have to beat some really, really good baseball teams to get in. And this team right now has the goods to do that. And if you can get in, you can beat anybody.
But they should be one of those really good baseball teams where you don't have to hedge it all. You're like, yeah, Padres. That's a team.
You always have to hedge. I mean, look in the East. I mean, the Braves getting Ronald Acuna Jr. and Spencer Strider back might finish in 3rd place. That's, you think Atlanta's looking at this as like we're only going to be in 3rd place. No, they're going to look at it and go, we're in the wild card again. Let's go beat San Diego this time. Like this, that's it. Yeah. When you got really good teams and are stacked up and down a division like that, it's going to be a battle the entire time. So it's a badge of honor to get into the playoffs in that situation.
I just didn't think like a year or two ago we'd be like, yeah, we might be chasing the Diamondbacks a little bit.
Well, the Diamondbacks had to see 2 aces show up, and they signed Corbin Burns. They got a lot of pitching there.
They've been able to make some moves, in the last cycle or two that the Padres haven't been able to. And I think, part of it is something about odd years. I get a little nervous about these odd years. And I think everything that you say is completely spot on. I think when I express some concern, it's like, what do the next 5 years look like? It's not necessarily just this year, because I do completely agree with you. You have Machado still somewhere in his prime. Tatis, Merrill, hopefully has just as good a year as he had last year. Hopefully Bogarts comes back. You've got good starting pitching, at least at the moment. So yes, certainly the cupboard's not bare. The pieces are there for this to be a playoff team, and for them to scare some folks in October. I think I just like imagining just thinking about what the last 5 years were like and how they maybe could have been a little bit better. And now imagining like the next 5 years and some of the writing on the wall, I think it's more of kind of like a long-term concern, where it felt like this team was in the mentality of championship window. We're going to get a parade. The gods are going to smile down, yada, yada, yada. I have a little less confidence that they will be able to maneuver as such and make those types of claims based on what we're seeing and hearing, for now, the foreseeable future. And I would love to be completely dead wrong about that. And I think if you go back to a year ago, we were probably really worried about the 2024 Padres because they didn't have Profar at that point. They didn't have Cease. They didn't have Arise. They didn't have Solano. They didn't have Peralta. There were tons of questions. Now they had a bunch of minor leaguers that they could trade away, and they did. But I don't think I was super confident a year ago. And I have some concerns this time around as well. And hopefully AJ Preller can answer the bell just as well as he did a year ago.
Yeah, and you had Mike Schilt. He didn't know his first year as a manager, how that was going to go. There were a lot of question marks. I think we all had still a bad taste in our mouth from the whole 2023 experience too. I get what you're saying about the 5-year thing, because there is no way of knowing. You don't know how Bogarts' contract is going to age. You don't know how Manny's contract is going to age. You don't know how Toddy's contract is going to age. You don't know. You just don't know. Maybe in 5 years, the lineup anchored by Jackson Merrill and Ethan Salas and Leodalis DeVries, and you got a rotation anchored by Cash Mayfield and Boston Bateman, because all of them hit, and you got the youngest core of awesome talents in baseball, and this is the new Guardians, right? That maybe that happens. Maybe all of them flame out because I'll have to have 7 Tommy John surgeries. Who knows? So you're right. It's difficult to look down the line in 5 years with any Major League Baseball team, except the freaking Dodgers, because screw them. Then know that they are going to be in some kind of competitive window. So then that can be scary, because when you go so long with the garbage that we had to deal with as Padres fans, and then you get that taste, even 3 out of 5 years being in the playoffs and having legitimate chances and going to the National League Championship Series and knocking off the Braves in a wild card series, like you start getting that taste of the championship nectar. You don't want it to go away so fast. Like you're hoping, can we make this last as long as we possibly can? Like we all want that. So that is what you're saying is a legitimate concern. There's no question. I'm trying to push to the back of my head right now and take it year by year, because I don't want to start letting that doom patrol start,
well, and there's no sense in worrying about 2028 at this point anyways.
Yeah, exactly. And that's only 3 years away. My God. So old. But it's tough. It's tough to not look beyond this, while also, because that's what a major league general manager has to do. He has to look at not just this year, but also what are we going to look like in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. We got to do that proverbial take it 1 year at a time thing. And see what we can do with this one. What you bring up is absolutely a legitimate concern that I'm basically trying to ignore right now.
You have any thoughts? You want to transition to like baseball things? You were at FanFest. Anything you saw or heard that resonated with you from FanFest? Our first chance to hear from the team about what's been kind of a bummer of an off season. What's been in your head since you got a chance to hear from those guys on Saturday?
I'm going to make a bold statement.
Oh, let's go.
Okay, here we go. And I'm dead serious about this. I was talking to Fernando Tatis Jr. and I asked him, if you're healthy, which he says he's healthy. He says he hasn't felt this good health-wise since after 2020 going into 2021, where he would then smash 42 homers in 130 games and be an MVP finalist. So I said, Toddy, if you're healthy, what are you capable of? And he said, all due respect, I'm kind of paraphrasing here, all due respect to all the other players, it was a great era of baseball. when I'm healthy and my head's in the right place, I'm second to none on the baseball field. And I fully believed him. So I'm going to say Shohei Ohtani has become the LeBron James of baseball, where he could be the MVP literally any year. Mm-hmm. So you're going to have to find somebody else to come out and make a real case for the voters to not give it to him. Because that's, I mean, LeBron should have had 4 more MVPs. Let's just call it as it. Michael Jordan should have had 4 more MVPs.
Sure.
Kobe should have had more than 1. That's insane to me. So I think Fernando Tatis Jr. is going to push the voters to make him the MVP. He's going to have such a monster year. And this goes back to the playoffs last year. I was talking to him in the clubhouse in LA after he had a 119-mile-an-hour double on the exit velocity. I said, "You see your exit velo on the double?" He's like, "Yeah, 119. I said, "You ever hit one that hard?" He's like, "No, I never have." And his swing was effortless. So I'm thinking when he said, "My head's in the right place," I think he understood and learned something about himself last year. He doesn't have to be max effort on every swing, which Darnay, we've been talking about since his rookie season on this podcast.
Well, you're the smart one, man.
Click with him. He doesn't have to be max effort all the time. If he stays within himself and just barrels baseballs, he is going to have an offensive statistical year that is so obscene that he's going to force voters to take votes for the MVP away from Shohei Ohtani. So I'm going to say right now, Fernando Tatis Jr. will be the 2025 National League Most Valuable Player. I got that vibe. I got that feeling from him. I think it all clicks finally this year in his age 26 season.
Yeah. I mean, you could see it. Like you said, you'd see it during the postseason. You could see it at stretches last year. Last spring training, he talked about his swing being in a great place and like he didn't want to make any predictions, but look out, he's going to have a big year. And, for whatever reason, there's a slower start and then there was the injury. It's like you just want, like you said, him feeling good. Like, man, can we just keep the guy healthy? No weird injuries, no strange ailments that we didn't know about that popped up and we don't know the origin of it. Or
no
this
motorcycle
or that.
accidents. Yeah.
It goes without.
No ringworm.
None of the above. And can just have him out there for like 155 games and he be himself and he feel comfortable and have fun and all that. We would love to see it. And again, just thinking about all the different things that would impact our outlook on this team. If you have an MVP, Fernando Tatis Jr., along with Manny Machado, just having like a Machado-esque season, I think Bogaerts is another one of those. Like if Xander Bogaerts suddenly wakes up and hits 295 with 22 homers, you're looking at a different guy and a different type of lineup. If he looks like the Boston version, 4-time All-Star version of himself, all of a sudden, the productivity you got from Jurickson Profar, it's just coming from Xander Bogaerts. So the productivity you're getting from Jurickson Profar, you're getting a little bit more from Fernando Tatis Jr. So when Morosi was on with us and he said the aircraft carriers got to be aircraft carriers, Fernando Tatis Jr. is probably like the most... the fanciest one with the best gadgets and updated technology. And
he's the nuclear one, right?
He's a nuclear one. He can go way faster than aircraft carriers should be able to go. He's got power and speed and all these things. So I would love to see it. There's, if I could have one prediction come correct, that would be the one that I think I would go with, because again, it would just make the Padres as a whole that much better. If you were able to couple that with Jackson Merrill continuing on the pace that he was on last year, Manny Machado, even if he's not performing at an MVP level, doing kind of what we saw the last 2/3 of the season, hopefully Bogaerts picks it up. And I think I might be speaking more positively or optimistically about the future of the San Diego Padres. So I like that prediction a lot.
Yeah, well, the other one was Manny said that his elbow feels great, which obviously was not the key. He said he could actually work out. He said, I can actually work out, man. I could throw a baseball, which he literally couldn't do last year leading up to the season. And you saw how slow his start was. So the fact that he is 100% healthy, he looked a little more ripped because he was able to work out a little bit more. So that's a really good sign. The other thing that really struck me was Jackson Merrill, because he comes right up to the microphone and says, yeah, I mean, I got a little more confidence after having a really good year, but I'm looking at this as I still need to go out and earn myself a spot on this roster. And he was dead serious. Like the dude should have been the rookie of the year. He was an all-star. He was an absolute, he became a thing last year, and he is coming back and he will say this in year 20, and he will fully believe it, because this is the way that he has to get himself in the right mind frame to go out and play baseball. That I haven't earned a damn thing yet. I have to go out and prove it every single pitch of every single game. And that's the way that kid is wired, and I absolutely adore him for it. So there is no sophomore slump coming for Jackson Merrill. He got adjusted to so many times last year. But I asked him, like, teams got a whole year of you last year, and obviously you handled the adjustments really, really well. What are you expecting them to do to you this year now to have a whole offseason to think about it? He's like, honestly, I don't know, man. Baseball is it's all about adjustments. You're constantly adjusting pitch to pitch. So the fact that he's already got that down I think is really, really good sign that he is not going to have any kind of sophomore slump. Again, I think the comp for him is like a Gunnar Henderson, who was really good in his first year, got better in his second year. I think that's the trajectory that Jackson Merrill is on, where you thought last year was good. You ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, his mentality, last year, from being an all-star to being in the rookie of the year conversation, he handles all that perfectly. Nothing seems to get to him, and certainly nothing seems to cause him to take his foot off the gas or be distracted or caught up in the hype or this or that. He's got such the right approach and mentality, and I figure that will serve him well when he's going to have everybody's attention, way more going to this year than he did a year ago. I thought, some of the stuff that was said, from Joe and about Joe Musgrove was interesting. It'll be cool to see him around, and a guy that, it kills him that he won't be able to contribute to the team in 2025. Like, he wants to, on the field, he wants to contribute in other ways. We know he's one of the, main leaders for this club and really important to the group from that standpoint. You heard Michael King and others talk about his presence, what it means, and how he's kind of altering his approach to make sure he can be a part of whatever they do in 2025. And he's not off just kind of doing his thing and getting his elbow right and letting them handle, the season itself. Like, he wants to be as involved and wants to contribute and help the team out however he can, which is very Joe Musgrove, not a surprise. And it'll be good to check in with him and theoretically see him around. And occasionally, I'm sure he'll hold court in the clubhouse if it's good or bad. Like, Joe, what are you seeing? Because obviously his perspective is really valuable.
He still held Camp 44, and he had more than 40 guys show up for it, which is awesome. That is just awesome. Dylan Cease flew in for it. Michael King flew in for it. Yu Darvish was there for it. It's everybody shows up to this thing. And it's a really good, all of them to a man said, it's a great way, not just to kind of get back and getting some workouts in, but we just get around each other again. Because a lot of these guys go their separate ways. Michael King lives in Tampa, and Dylan Cease goes back to Atlanta. They all live in different places, right? So to get them all back and got to get them around each other and starting getting back on the same page, just from a camaraderie standpoint, is awesome. And the other thing that Joe said that was really cool was he's going on every road trip. Like, he is going to act like he is still a part of this club. He's going to be there every day. And he said, if I don't go on a road trip and I miss 3 games in Colorado, I feel like it's 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Because there are times that, those little short 3-game stretches where a team goes up to Denver. And if you're not pitching that game, the starting pitcher stay behind, because there's no reason to go up to altitude, get your body all screwed up, and then come on back. He's like, I hate that. I don't like not being around the team even for that long. So he's going to make every road trip. He's going to be basically another coach out there. And it was the first time, Darnay, that I really thought, Joe's going to be a skipper someday. It's because that's so far off in the distance. He's 31 years old. That's so far off in the distance. But hearing him talk about it, I was like, that's manager material right there. And that is very much a huge compliment coming from me, because I hold managers in very high regard, because they have to be really, really understanding of the game. I think that's the first time I looked at him and went, Joe's going to be a baseball lifer, and he's probably going to be a skipper at some point.
I could see it. Anything else you care to finish up with some FanGraphs Zips projections?
Oh, do it. I haven't seen these yet.
We'll start with the MLB playoff odds, because I think that just came out yesterday. Let's get down here to the NL West. Dodgers have a 97.9% chance of making the playoffs and a 24% chance of winning the World Series. Diamondbacks, a 59% chance of making the playoffs, 50% chance of a wild card. Padres, 31% chance of making the playoffs, 29% chance of winning the wild card, a projected win total of 81.4.
81. Hang on a second. 81 wins? What? This is stupid. Never look at that web. Which one was this? Fangraphs?
This is Fangraphs.
No, I won't do
Hey,
it again.
hey, look.
No, 81 and point something wins for this team. That is irresponsible. That is irresponsible. They won 93 games last year. You're telling me they're going to take a 12-game step back with almost the exact same roster? No. Dude, can I bet the over on that? Is that possible?
I'm sure you could find a market somewhere that would take your money. Absolutely. Let's see. They have, what were their odds? 31%. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 teams. There you go. You had it. 8 teams with, if you throw in the Cardinals and the Giants. Well, no, 8 teams with 30% or better odds of making the playoffs. So,
and are they the 8 teams that we mentioned earlier?
They're the 8 teams that you mentioned: the Braves, Phillies, Mets, Cubs, Brewers, Dodgers, Diamondbacks, Padres, as you would expect. This is what scares me, though. If you had told us in 2023 that they were going to win 82 games, we'd have been like, that's nonsense. And now I'm not saying that this is going to happen. I'm not saying 81 is going to be the number. If I had to guess, I would say probably similar to what I had last year. It was like 85 or something like that. You know, a very boring, safe number. But I just have a tough time believing like anything isn't possible with this team, sadly.
I'd say 88 is probably a good number right now. 88 sounds about right.
If you ask any Padres fan, would you sign up for 88 wins right now? I think it's as unanimous as the vote for John Seidler.
Yeah, and it's that's a great callback. It's also, remember back in 2023, you know, you were still playing the unbalanced schedule. It was the 19 games against the Dodgers and the 19 games against the Diamondbacks. Like, they don't do that anymore. So you still got a lot more games against other teams all around baseball. And the American League is just kind of, it's all kind of muddled together right now, aside from, you know, a couple of teams at the very top. So this is a team that's not going to, they say, well, you're in the division, you're going to have to go up against these really strong teams. And the National League West might be the deepest division in all of baseball, but you don't have to play them 60 times. You know what I mean? So it's, you're getting through that schedule a lot easier now. I think 88 sounds just about right for this club. And then, well, of course, we'll have to see what, because as we know, Darnay, this team's roster, as it looks now, is not how it's going to look on opening day, and is not going to how it looks on August 1st. It's going to continue to change. That we can guarantee.
Don't hold us to anything we said in this particular episode other than Derek's Tatis MVP prediction.
Yes, hold us to that one.
In terms of individual player-by-player projections, they've got the catcher spot, Diaz and Campusano, a .7 WAR, but more optimistically.
Positive. I was shocked. Not surprised they're going to even get in the positive there.
More optimistically, Tatis 5.9, Merrill 4.8, Machado 3.9, Bogarts 3.3, Cease 3.8, King 3.9, Darvish 2.2. So it gives you kind of a general idea of what the projections look like. But Merrill 4.8 WAR year 2.
Not too shabby.
Not too shabby. In terms of kind of your productivity, this is where it gets fun for me. Like, give me some raw numbers here. Give me 29 homers from Fernando Tatis Jr. I think I would take the over on that.
Yeah, that's low.
That's in let's see, 467 at bats. 21 homers from Jackson Merrill, 26 from Machado, 16 from Eggy Rosario. One thing that Dan Zimborski, who we've had on the pod, mentioned is the machines really like Eggy Rosario, which, again, sign me up for that. Give me an Eggy breakout season. I think anybody would welcome that development.
But no, Merrill is very low at 21. He had 24 a year ago, figuring out baseball, and he's stronger and older now.
Yeah. Tatis, let's see, 276, 346, 526, an OPS plus of 143. Merrill 119, 281 average. Machado 119, 266 average. Bogart's 262, 103 OPS plus, an ISO of 131. So you're looking at about league average, which sadly, league average 100, anything over 100 in terms of OPS plus would be an upgrade for Xander Bogaerts, and a pretty significant one. Jake Cronenworth kind of in the same neighborhood. Eggy Rosario. Remember last year, Jackson Merrill, like we're looking at all this stuff. We're looking at Jacob Marcy, and what would they even project for those guys? And I think Jackson was at like a 94 OPS plus. He ended up exceeding that.
What about Graham Pauley? Remember the Graham Pauley experiment last year?
So this is where this is interesting. A guy that keeps coming up, then I'm like, hey, I'm sorting by like homers and that sort of thing. I'm like, this guy keeps coming up, and like right around the neighborhood of Jake Cronenworth with 14 homers. Did he have a decent OPS plus? Let me see. Let me find this guy. 96, so nothing crazy. But again, a guy, as I'm kind of scrolling through the list, like keeps popping up a little bit higher than I would expect, is Oscar Gonzalez.
Yeah.
And suddenly I'm like, you know what? I'm going to believe in the Oscar Gonzalez, like hype train, bounce back season.
Man.
I suddenly found myself thinking, okay, maybe he's going to surprise some folks in left field. He did it for a stretch in 2022. He's got some postseason experience, some big knocks in the postseason. Dealt with, I didn't realize I remember seeing the video, but forgot that this is who it was, who fouled a pitch off his own eye. And so he had an orbital fracture last year, which naturally is going to slow a guy down a little bit.
I've had one. It sucks. Yeah.
What haven't you had?
A lot.
Have you had Tommy John surgery, Derek?
No, but I'm due for one. No, I mean, jokes aside, yeah, I've got the torn UCL. I'm not going to have the surgery though, because I'm, damn near 50. There's no reason for me to do it unless I want to go pitch for the Dodgers, which apparently it would be great.
You can make good money. Make Kirby Yates money. What did he get? Like 29 or 30 over 2 years?
I think it was 1 for 13 is the guarantee, and there's options and stuff like that. So it's.
Do you know how much?
By the way, that was the ultimate screw you signing by the Dodgers.
Do you know how much? What his total compensation before that deal is as a Major League Baseball pitcher?
I do not.
26 million. So he's going to have half of what he's made to this point in 1 year. He's going to double it over the 2 years.
He's a great guy, and he deserves it. And I love the man.
For sure.
It's like I'm happy to see him coming back from the injury and having success. And it's one of those, just like, you know what? I don't want to see him on the mound against the Padres, but I'm happy to see him on a major league mound.
Yeah, for sure. There are the what is interesting about what Dan does and with these ZiPS projections, that they give you kind of like the possibilities on either end of the spectrum, like 80th percentile, 20th percentile, what looks really good, what looks not so good, and some idea of like the likelihood therein. And so for Tatis, you have like a 304 season with a 970 OPS, 167 OPS plus a 6-1 WAR. On the other end, 252, 119 OPS plus. So it gives you some idea of just kind of the range of possibilities.
The ceiling and the floor, right?
Yeah. Jackson Merrill, 141 OPS plus compared to about league average. So it does give you, like, you look at Tatis's number and you might say, oh, that's a little bit modest. But there is some upside there that the computers do acknowledge.
Yeah, it's the mean. What they're getting is the mean there. And then they say, all right, if the guy really tears it up this year, you get this. And if the guy just for some reason has the flu for 4 months or, gets mono, this is what's going to happen.
For instance, Oscar Gonzalez, 115 OPS plus. Sign me up for that. With 775 OPS. That'll play.
Oh yeah, that guy's got ability coming out his ears. I don't know why the Yankees gave up on him, honestly, especially because they weren't going to have Soto there. They're just going to let him go. So that was one of those. That could be one of those like we saw, like with Jurickson Profar last year. Like some of these guys who AJ goes out and finds. Jeremiah Estrada was let go by the Cubs. He's an absolute closer in the making. You know, it's the AJ finds these dudes he keeps tabs on, and like they come in. I think that's the one you got to look at this year is like if one of them is going to pop, it's most likely going to be him.
If he can not strike out in 30% of his at bats, like he could be
Victor Gonzalez, man, going to help out.
Get him with Vic. Yeah, that's true. And they've tended to kind of stay away from some of those guys. Every so often there'd be a player out there and we're kind of discussing and you see like, 28% strikeout rate. You're like, 32% strikeout rate. Probably not going to go for him. But AJ loves bringing in kind of, like you said, the toolsy player, sexy prospect from years past that for whatever reason, heck, he brought Luis Patino back once or twice. So hoping that one of those guys will hit. I think Jose Azocar was kind of in that mold, and he was an impactful piece for the Padres for a couple years. So it would be great to see that happen with an Oscar Gonzalez, and that would make AJ Preller's life a lot easier for sure.
Yeah, I saw Alexi Amarista playing in the Caribbean Series. What's Alexi up to these days? Bring him back.
Oh man, I just like 6 days away from pitchers and catchers, and the 17th first full squad workout, and
which we will be there for.
You'll be out there, and so I would not be the least bit surprised if you're reporting on some new player that was signed and just showed up in Peoria, or a trade that they're having an emergency scrum with AJ about at 12:30. You know, just kind of out of the blue.
When we're across the street, or Red Robin there,
furiously editing away on your 4 p.m. package. So we'll see. Hopefully it's an exciting visit to Peoria for you. Anything else before we close up shop?
No, we got to go do some TV stuff. I will say this. Tonight we find out the Pro Football Hall of Fame class, the NFL honors. If Antonio Gates doesn't get in for a second time, I'm probably going to take a hostage because there's no reason for that. And remember, he's always going to be a San Diego Charger. So San Diego fans, hopefully tonight we have something else to celebrate, and one of our own getting elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, because that would be something to celebrate.
No doubt about that. Thank you, Derek. Appreciate everybody watching and listening, and we will catch you next time. See you, everybody.